Daniel Carter always believed that real respect came from humility, not from wealth. Even though he was one of the major owners of a fast-rising airline company, he lived like a normal person. He wore simple clothes, spoke with kindness, and never carried himself like someone above others. That morning, he was traveling with his wife, Maya, and their little son, Noah, on a regular commercial flight instead of their private company jet. Maya loved the idea of flying with normal passengers so that Noah could see different people and learn how the world worked. As they boarded the plane, the cabin was bright with soft morning light. People were settling into their seats, adjusting bags, and greeting each other. Daniel held Noah's small backpack while Maya guided their little boy through the narrow aisle. Noah, excited, kept pointing at the windows and smiling at other passengers. Daniel smiled. He loved moments like this, simple, peaceful, family moments. But peace often ends when you least expect it. Halfway down the aisle, a flight attendant named Rebecca stood with her arms crossed. She was tall, well-groomed, with a confident posture. She had worked in the airline industry for years and believed she could read people easily. But sometimes, confidence without understanding becomes a mistake. Rebecca watched Daniel approach with a firm, almost suspicious gaze. Her eyes scanned his suit, then moved sharply between him, his wife, and the little boy. She assumed things without asking questions. She judged before speaking. Daniel held his boarding pass gently between his fingers and smiled politely. "Good morning," he said. Rebecca did not smile back. Instead, she stepped forward, blocking his path slightly. "Sir, first class is full," she said quickly, as if reading from a rule book. "You need to move to your assigned seat in the back." Daniel blinked, a little confused. "This is my assigned seat," he said calmly, pointing to row 1A printed on his boarding pass. Rebecca did not even look at the pass. She waved her hand dismissively. "I do not have time for games today. Please go to the back of the plane." Maya's smile faded instantly. She tightened her hold around Noah as other passengers began watching silently. Daniel stayed calm. "Ma'am," he said softly, "if you check my boarding pass, you'll see." "Sir." Rebecca snapped. "I said the back. Do not make this difficult." A few passengers exchanged awkward glances. One older man whispered, "Why isn't she just checking the ticket?" Another woman frowned, clearly uncomfortable with the tone Rebecca was using. Daniel felt the weight of everyone's eyes on him, but not because he cared what they thought, he cared about what his son saw. Noah looked up at him with big, innocent eyes, confused about why the lady was speaking to his father like that. Maya stepped closer and spoke politely. "We're not trying to cause trouble. We just want to sit in the seats we paid for." Rebecca's expression hardened even more. "You can discuss that with security," she said sharply. "If you do not move now, I will have you removed from this aircraft." The tone in her voice made Maya's heart drop. She felt embarrassed, humiliated, exposed in front of strangers. Daniel took a slow breath. He had faced many difficult situations in business, tough investors, failing companies, impossible deadlines, but nothing stung as deeply as watching his wife and son feel small because of a misunderstanding. Still, he chose calmness. "Please," he said gently, "at least look at the boarding passes." Rebecca reached out, snatched the boarding pass from Daniel's hand, and glanced at it with quick, uninterested eyes, barely half a second. She handed it back without a word. "You can either go to the back," she said, her voice cold, "or get off this flight." A wave of silence spread through the cabin. Many passengers clearly felt the tension, and several looked uncomfortable. They knew something was wrong, but nobody wanted to step into conflict. Noah sensed the stress and buried his face in Maya's shoulder. Daniel looked at his wife. Maya's eyes were watery, but she nodded softly, trusting him. In that moment, Daniel faced a choice: argue loudly and create a scene, or protect his family's dignity. He gently took Maya's hand. "Let's step outside for a moment," he said quietly. His voice was so steady, so peaceful, that even a few passengers smiled sadly, admiring the dignity in his tone. As they turned to leave, Rebecca crossed her arms with a satisfied expression, believing she had done the right thing. But she had no idea who she had just forced off the plane. No idea that the man she was dismissing so confidently was a major shareholder, one of the owners of the very airline she worked for. She did not know the lesson life was about to teach her. And Daniel had no intention of embarrassing her. He simply believed that truth would reveal itself in its own time. When Daniel stepped off the plane with Maya and little Noah, he felt the sting of humiliation settle deep inside his chest, not because of what Rebecca had said, but because his family had suffered through something they never should have. Maya held Noah gently, rubbing his back as he sniffled softly. The boy did not understand what happened, only that something felt wrong. The airport hallway was quiet, a sharp contrast to the tense atmosphere inside the aircraft moments ago. Daniel kept walking with calm, even steps. He believed that anger only created more problems, and he would not let Noah see him lose control. But inside, he felt a heavy ache. He had always tried to teach his son that the world was full of good people. Moments like this shook that belief. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked Maya quietly. She nodded, though her eyes were still slightly red. "I just hate that Noah had to see that," she whispered. "We were treated like we didn't belong there." Daniel gently squeezed her hand. "We do belong. Today was not about us. It was about someone else's assumptions." Maya breathed out slowly. "You handled it well," she said. "Better than I could have." Daniel gave a soft smile. "I handled it for you both." As they waited near the boarding gate, a few passengers from the plane walked by slowly. Some gave them sympathetic looks. One older woman approached, her voice low and comforting. "I'm so sorry for what happened back there," she said sincerely. "That was not fair." Daniel offered a grateful nod. "Thank you for saying that." Her small act of kindness eased some of the heaviness in the air. It reminded Daniel that even when one person brought negativity, others still carried compassion. While they sat down, Maya distracted Noah with a little airplane toy he loved. He pressed the buttons, making tiny engine sounds, almost forgetting the tension he had felt moments earlier. But Daniel's mind kept replaying the scene. The tone in Rebecca's voice, the way she assumed without checking anything, the confidence in her words when she told them to go to the back. He wondered how many other people she had spoken to in that way. He was deep in thought when the airport supervisor, Mr. Lewis, walked up briskly with concern written across his face. "Mr. Carter," he said quickly, "I was just informed that you and your family were removed from the aircraft." "I came as fast as I could." Daniel stood politely. "We didn't want to make a scene," he said calmly. "But the flight attendant refused to check our boarding passes." Mr. Lewis frowned deeply, almost shocked. "That is completely unacceptable. May I see your passes?" Daniel handed them over. The supervisor checked them carefully, his eyes widening when he saw the status lines, the airline's elite codes, and the note attached to Daniel's account. This is first-class priority," Mr. Lewis said. "These are not even normal tickets. These are top-tier executive seats." Daniel nodded gently. "I know." The supervisor's expression shifted from confusion to embarrassment. His voice lowered. "Sir. I recognize your name. Carter. Are you?" Daniel lifted a hand politely, stopping him. "Please don't say anything loudly. My family has already been through enough today." Mr. Lewis swallowed, understanding instantly. He nodded. "Of course. I apologize deeply. This should never have happened. I will take full responsibility." Before he could say more, Rebecca walked down the jet bridge toward them. She was still carrying the same firm expression, as if she expected Daniel to argue or demand something unreasonable. Her posture stiffened when she saw the supervisor speaking to him with respect. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, still maintaining an authoritative tone. Mr. Lewis turned sharply. "Rebecca, we need to talk." Rebecca crossed her arms. "I was handling the situation. They were in the wrong section." "No," Mr. Lewis interrupted firmly. "They were not." Rebecca opened her mouth to speak, but he raised the boarding passes between two fingers. "These seats are theirs. They are first-class passengers. High-status passengers." Her face faltered for a moment, but she quickly tried to mask it. I assumed, the system probably changed their seats last minute." Daniel watched quietly, never once raising his voice or interrupting. He didn't need to. Mr. Lewis spoke sharply. "You did not check the boarding passes at all." Rebecca froze. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to deny it, but she knew he was right. Maybe I looked too quickly," she said weakly. "You didn't," the supervisor replied. "You judged them before you checked anything. And now this family has been humiliated." Rebecca's face turned pale. Her shoulders lowered slightly as the weight of her actions started settling in. She glanced at Daniel, then at Maya holding Noah gently. I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said softly. "I just thought." Daniel finally spoke, his tone calm and steady. "Sometimes, when we think too quickly, we hurt people without realizing it." Rebecca swallowed hard. It was the first moment she looked truly unsure of herself. The supervisor turned back to Daniel. "Sir, please accept our apologies. Let me take you to the VIP lounge while we sort this out." Maya glanced at Daniel, waiting for his decision. He nodded gently. "Thank you," he said. "We appreciate it." As they walked away, Rebecca stood frozen, realizing for the first time the depth of the mistake she had made. And she still did not know the full truth. She had not just mistreated any passenger. She had mistreated a man whose last name her entire company was built on. The VIP lounge was quiet and warm, a complete world away from the tension Daniel, Maya, and Noah just experienced. Soft music played in the background, and the staff treated the family with gentle smiles and respectful words. Maya sat on a comfortable chair, finally beginning to relax as Noah climbed onto her lap, playing with his toy airplane again. Daniel stood by the tall glass windows, looking out at the runway. Planes rolled slowly, engines humming like distant waves. But his mind was still trapped in the memory of the confrontation on the plane. He replayed Rebecca's voice, her cold tone, and the judgment that had appeared instantly on her face. He wondered how many other passengers had been treated that way. People who did not have the power he had. People who simply wanted to travel with dignity. Mr. Lewis, the supervisor, returned after making several urgent calls. He looked nervous, almost as though he was rushing to fix a disaster. "Mr. Carter," he said softly, "I've spoken to the airline management. They are shocked this happened. They asked me to personally apologize again." Daniel nodded politely. "Thank you," he said. "I understand mistakes happen. But this was not a small mistake," Mr. Lewis insisted. "This was mistreatment. And not just any mistreatment." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "It happened to a family whose name appears in every executive book of this company." Daniel sighed softly. He had worked hard to keep his identity private during travel. Not because he wanted to hide, but because he wanted to be treated normally, not better, not worse. Maya joined them at the window, gently holding Noah's hand. "We appreciate your help," she told Mr. Lewis. "We only wanted a peaceful flight." Mr. Lewis nodded. "And you deserve one." At that moment, Rebecca entered the lounge. She walked slowly, her confident posture from earlier completely gone. Her steps were unsteady, and her eyes searched nervously for Daniel. When she saw him, her face tightened, and she swallowed hard. Daniel turned to face her calmly. Mr. Lewis stepped forward. Rebecca, I need you to listen carefully. But Rebecca raised a trembling hand. I want to speak first, she said, her voice softer than Daniel had ever heard it. Daniel nodded gently, giving her space to speak. Rebecca's eyes went from Daniel to Maya to little Noah. She looked ashamed, almost unable to meet anyone's gaze. Earlier, on the plane, she began, but her voice cracked slightly. I made assumptions. Wrong assumptions. I judged you without checking anything. I spoke to you in a way no passenger deserves. Maya held Noah closer as the room went still. I've been in this job a long time, Rebecca continued. Sometimes you think you understand everything at a glance, but today showed me I don't. And you were polite the whole time. It made me realize just how wrong I was. Daniel listened quietly, his expression soft but firm. I'm sorry, Rebecca finally said, her eyes watering. I truly am. There was a long silence. Maya looked at Daniel, waiting to see what he would say. Daniel stepped a little closer and spoke gently, his voice calm, not angry, not bitter. Rebecca, he said, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is whether you learn from them. Rebecca nodded slowly, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. But, Daniel continued softly, your job gives you power. How you use that power affects people's lives. Sometimes, it hurts in ways you cannot see. Rebecca lowered her head. Mr. Lewis added, this incident has already been reported to upper management. You may face disciplinary action. Rebecca looked terrified, but Daniel raised his hand lightly. I don't want her punished harshly, he said calmly. Punishment doesn't always teach. Understanding does. Both Maya and the supervisor looked surprised. Daniel turned to Rebecca again. I prefer something better. I want you to join a training program the airline is starting. A program about respect, empathy, and dealing with passengers fairly. Rebecca blinked, shocked. You want me to help with that? Daniel nodded. Yes. Because real change comes from people who understand what went wrong. Rebecca wiped her eyes. I'll do it. I will do anything to make this right. Daniel smiled kindly. Then that is enough. Maya felt a wave of relief wash through her. She admired her husband's strength, not strength in power, but strength in character. He had the ability to destroy someone's career with one phone call. Instead, he chose to lift someone up, to give them a chance to grow. A few moments later, senior airline management arrived. They shook Daniel's hand respectfully, spoke softly to Maya, and gently greeted Noah, who smiled shyly at them. Mr. Carter, one of the executives said, we would like to offer your family a private jet for today's travel. It is the least we can do. But Daniel shook his head slowly. Thank you, he said. But I want my son to learn something important today. Problems can be solved with calmness. With dignity. Not with special treatment. The executives exchanged looks of admiration. A new flight was arranged for them, and this time, every staff member treated the family with warmth and care, not because of Daniel's status, but because they genuinely wanted to make things right. As Daniel walked toward the gate holding his son's hand, he whispered to Noah. Remember, son, people may hurt you sometimes. But how you respond shows who you truly are. Noah looked up at him and nodded innocently. And behind them, standing quietly with a changed heart, was Rebecca. The new flight the airline arranged for Daniel's family was scheduled to leave in less than an hour. The VIP team escorted them gently through a quiet side hallway to avoid more attention. Maya held Noah's hand while Daniel walked beside them, calm and thoughtful, though something heavy still lingered inside him. The more he replayed the earlier moment, the clearer one thing became: this was not just about a wrong seat or a rejected boarding pass. It was about assumptions, about quick judgments, about how easily people can forget that every human being deserves respect. As they walked toward a private waiting area, a small group of senior airline executives approached. They were dressed in sharp uniforms, carrying tablets and folders. Their expressions were serious, not because of who Daniel was, but because they understood the weight of what had happened. The lead executive, Mr. Andrews, stepped forward with a respectful nod. "Mr. Carter, Mrs. Carter, thank you for your patience," he said gently. "We are truly sorry about what your family experienced today." Daniel nodded politely. He was not looking for grand apologies. He simply wanted the truth to be understood. But Mr. Andrews continued, choosing his words carefully. "When Mr. Lewis informed us, and we saw your name, it made everything even more serious." Rebecca stood behind the group, her expression tight and anxious. She had been ordered to attend the meeting. It was part of the process. Part of accountability. Maya gently lifted Noah into her arms. "We appreciate you coming," she said softly. "We just want a peaceful flight. That's all." "Of course," Mr. Andrews said quickly. "But there is something we must address, with your permission." Daniel nodded. Mr. Andrews cleared his throat softly. "Your family name, Carter, is deeply known in our company. You belong to the ownership group, and your influence is significant." Rebecca flinched softly, her eyes widening. She looked from Daniel to Maya, realization hitting her like a wave she never saw coming. Daniel took a slow breath. "Yes," he said calmly. "My grandfather, Jonathan Carter, was one of the founders of the airline. My father continued his legacy. And now I help run a part of it." Rebecca's mouth parted in shock. She slowly lowered her eyes, feeling the ground beneath her shift. Every rule, every training session, every briefing she had attended over the years mentioned the Carter family with respect. She had never imagined she would one day yell at one of them. She felt a shiver run through her. In that moment, she finally understood who she had spoken to, and how she had spoken. But Daniel did not brag. He did not gloat. He simply stood with calm dignity, his hands folded gently in front of him. Mr. Andrews continued, "Your family's contributions built many of the programs we still use today, employee training, customer care, even this very lounge." Rebecca felt her eyes burn. She had insulted a man who had helped make her job possible. She wished she could disappear. Daniel looked at her quietly. His expression was not angry or triumphant, just deeply human. "Rebecca," he said softly, "I never wanted you to discover my identity this way." She looked up slowly, guilt written over her face. I didn't know," she whispered. "I would never, I mean. I should have treated you right from the start, no matter who you were." Daniel held her gaze. "Yes," he said gently. "That is the point." Tears gathered in her eyes, but she blinked them back quickly. This was not about crying. This was about facing the truth. "I messed up," Rebecca said with a trembling voice. "Not because of your last name, but because I acted without thinking. I treated your family like they were less. And that is not who I want to be." Maya stepped forward slightly. "Everyone makes mistakes," she said softly. "What matters is how you fix them." Rebecca nodded slowly. "I want to fix it," she whispered. "I want to be better." Daniel placed his hands calmly in his pockets, a gesture of peace, not dominance. "I'm not asking you to be perfect," he said. "I just want you to remember something: every passenger has a story you don't know. You cannot judge them on one glance." Rebecca swallowed, heavy emotion rising in her chest. "I understand. Truly." Mr. Andrews cleared his throat again. "Daniel, the board wants to offer your family a private jet today. No pressure, of course." Daniel smiled gently. "That's kind, but unnecessary. We want to travel like everyone else. My son needs to see both sides of the world, the good and the bad." And he needs to see that problems can be solved with calm decisions, not special treatment. Maya nodded with agreement. Rebecca wiped a tear from the corner of her eye. I'm sorry again. I really am. Daniel gave her a small, warm smile. Then let's move forward. Rebecca felt something inside her shift, a mixture of respect, gratitude, and a desire to do better. As the executives led Daniel's family toward the new gate, Rebecca remained standing behind them. Something about this experience had changed her deeply. For the first time in a long while, she understood how powerful kindness could be. How deeply dignity mattered. And how quickly one moment could rewrite the course of someone's life. Behind those feelings was a quiet promise forming in her heart. She would never let quick judgment guide her actions again. The walk to the new boarding gate was calmer. The stress from earlier had softened, replaced with a quiet sense of relief. Daniel held Noah's hand, swinging it gently to make the little boy laugh again. Maya walked on the other side, finally breathing normally as the painful memory began to fade. But behind them, at a respectful distance, Rebecca followed slowly. She had been instructed to accompany the supervisors until the situation was fully resolved, but she also wanted to be there, to show she was taking responsibility. Her steps were slow, thoughtful. Every moment with the Carter family reminded her of the mistake she had made, but it also opened her eyes. At the gate, a new team of flight attendants stood lined up, waiting specifically for Daniel's family. They greeted them with warm smiles and polite gestures, offering assistance with their bags and ensuring everything was comfortable. But Daniel signaled gently with his hand. "Thank you," he said, "but we're all right. Please treat us as you treat everyone." The attendants nodded politely, understanding exactly what he meant. Inside the aircraft, Maya settled into her first-class seat with Noah on her lap. The cabin was quiet and peaceful, the seats wide and soft, with gentle lights and welcoming staff. "It feels better this time," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Because kindness changes everything." Noah giggled, playing with the seat buttons and laughing at the tiny pillows. His innocence restored the lightness in the air. A few rows behind them, an unusual position for a flight attendant, Rebecca waited quietly. She had asked permission to observe, not to serve, because she wanted to understand something she had forgotten: compassion. Mr. Lewis leaned toward Daniel. She insisted on staying. She said she wants to learn. Daniel nodded slowly. Good. She will. As the plane prepared for takeoff, Rebecca asked if she could speak to them again. Maya gave a small nod. Rebecca approached carefully, her hands clasped, her voice gentle. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter. I know I apologized earlier. But after seeing how you treat everyone, staff, executives, strangers, I realized something." Daniel waited patiently. "I have been working this job for years," she continued. "And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing passengers as people. I saw them as something I needed to manage." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "It happens when stress builds and empathy fades." Rebecca's eyes softened. "Yes. And hearing about your family history with this airline, I was ashamed. But not because you're owners." She looked at Daniel with sincerity. "I was ashamed because you treated me with more respect than I gave you." Maya smiled gently. "Respect is always the right path." Rebecca looked down for a moment, gathering her courage. "I want to join that training program you mentioned. Not because I'm being punished, but because I want to change. I want to be someone Noah would be proud to see on a future flight." Noah lifted his head and blinked, clearly recognizing his name. Daniel chuckled softly at his innocent expression. Rebecca continued, "Your son deserves a world where people do better. Where they stop assuming. Where kindness is normal." Daniel took a slow breath. "Rebecca, the most powerful thing you can do is use your experience to teach others. If you join the program and help guide younger attendants, you'll change more lives than you realize. Rebecca's eyes warmed. I want that. I want to be that person. Maya leaned forward a little. Then start by being patient. Being human. And remembering that every face has a story. Rebecca nodded firmly. A few moments later, the plane engines hummed to life, and the aircraft lifted smoothly into the sky. Clouds drifted beneath them, stretching like soft white fields. The peaceful view seemed to calm everyone. Halfway through the flight, Daniel walked back to where Rebecca sat. She stood quickly, surprised. Relax, Daniel said with a small smile. I'm not here to talk about work. She let out a nervous laugh. I still can't believe who you really are. Daniel shook his head gently. What matters isn't who I am. What matters is how you grow from this. Rebecca listened with full attention. Daniel continued, when my father ran this airline, he always said something important, an airplane is metal and engines. But the people inside it, that's where the heart is. Rebecca felt those words settle inside her, quiet, heavy, meaningful. Your job is not only to serve, Daniel said. It's to protect dignity, kindness, and safety. People trust you with their fears and their journeys. Rebecca nodded slowly. I forgot that somewhere along the way. Daniel placed a gentle hand on the seat beside him. Now you can remember. Her eyes warmed with gratitude. Thank you, for being patient with me. Daniel smiled softly. Thank you for choosing to learn. When he returned to his seat, Maya touched his arm lightly. You see the good in people, she whispered. Even when they don't see it in themselves. Daniel looked at Noah, sleeping peacefully. I want him to grow up in a world where understanding is stronger than judgment. Maya smiled. And today, you helped build that world. The flight continued quietly, but something important had changed, not just for the Carter family, but for Rebecca too. She had come onto the plane as the woman who made a painful mistake. She would leave the plane as someone determined to become better. And that was the beginning of her transformation. When the plane touched down at their destination, a soft cheer rose from the passengers. It had been a calm flight, almost healing after the earlier chaos. Maya gently woke Noah, who stretched adorably and rubbed his eyes. Daniel smiled at the little boy. Ready to go, champ? Noah nodded sleepily, clutching his toy airplane. As the passengers stood, many smiled warmly at the Carter family. Even those who did not know the full story could feel something meaningful had happened, something that changed the atmosphere on the plane. Daniel reached for their bags while Maya straightened Noah's sweater. Everything felt peaceful again. But near the front of the cabin, Rebecca waited quietly, her hands folded and her posture humble. She did not stand there as a flight attendant giving directions. She stood there as someone who had learned a powerful lesson. When the Carter family reached her, she took a soft breath. Mr. and Mrs. Carter. I want to thank you, she said, her voice steady but emotional. Today changed me. More than you know. Daniel gave her a kind smile. I'm glad. I used to think I understood people just by looking at them, she continued. But you taught me that kindness must come first, always. Maya nodded gently. Everyone deserves dignity, Rebecca. Rebecca lowered her eyes respectfully. I will never forget that. And I will make sure the new attendants I train never forget it either. Daniel extended his hand. At first, Rebecca hesitated, overwhelmed by his grace, but she shook it firmly. You will do well, he said. Her eyes sparkled with gratitude. I won't let you down. As the family walked off the plane, Rebecca watched them leave, not with guilt, but with a newfound sense of purpose. She had been given a second chance, and she intended to use it to help others. A quiet walk, a powerful reflection. The airport terminal was buzzing with energy, people moving in every direction. But Daniel and Maya walked slowly, taking in the moment, feeling the weight of the experience settle into something meaningful. Maya looked up at her husband. "Daniel, you do know you changed her life today, right?" He smiled gently. "Maybe. Or maybe she changed her own life once she realized she needed to." Maya squeezed his arm. "You gave her the chance." Daniel thought for a moment. People deserve chances. But chances only work when someone is willing to grow. Noah tugged on Daniel's hand, pointing to a small cafe with bright colors. "Daddy, can we get juice?" Daniel laughed softly. "Of course. Let's get you the biggest one they have." As they sat in the cafe, enjoying a simple family moment, Daniel's phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from one of the senior airline board members. "Daniel, we heard what happened. The training you suggested will begin next week. Your approach was the right one. Proud of you." Daniel smiled gently and put the phone away. He did not need credit or praise. What mattered was the change. Rebecca's new beginning. Back on the aircraft, after all passengers had disembarked, Rebecca sat alone in the first-class cabin. The plane was quiet, sunlight spilling through the windows. She held a small notebook she usually used for flight notes. For the first time in a long time, she wrote something personal. "Today, I learned that respect is not optional. It is the heart of this job. And I will carry it forward. Always." She closed the notebook and placed it on her lap. She felt different, not ashamed, but awakened. She thought about Noah's innocent face, Maya's compassion, and Daniel's calm dignity. She wanted to be the kind of person who made people feel safe, not judged. Rebecca stood, feeling lighter, stronger. Tomorrow would be her first step into the new training program, the same one Daniel inspired. And she would walk into it with pride. The legacy lives on. Later that evening, Daniel and Maya tucked Noah into bed at their hotel. The little boy hugged his toy airplane tight. "Daddy," he whispered, "why was the airplane lady sad?" Daniel sat on the edge of the bed and brushed Noah's hair gently. "She realized she made a mistake," he said softly. "But she learned from it. And that's what matters." Noah nodded sleepily. "I want to be nice to people too." Daniel's heart warmed. "That's all I want, Noah. For you to be kind. Always." As they watched their son drift to sleep, Maya cupped Daniel's hand. "You didn't just fix a situation today," she whispered. "You changed a culture. And you did it with respect." Daniel kissed her forehead. "My father always said, leadership isn't about the title. It's about how you treat people." Maya smiled. "And you lived that today." Daniel looked out the window at the city lights blinking in the distance. Somewhere out there, Rebecca was beginning a new chapter, one shaped by humility, kindness, and growth. And somewhere inside the airline's main office, new policies were being drafted. Training programs were being prepared. Staff meetings were being scheduled. All because of one moment. One misunderstanding. One act of dignity. Daniel whispered to himself, if kindness spreads, the world becomes lighter. And that night, it truly did.